Do you believe that understanding and taking time to learn about certain cultural customs that are foreign to us Americans would help get rid of stereotypes within our society?
Yes, I do believe that.
Okay. In today's world, what do you believe is considered cultural appropriation? Because our society today has taken to social media to voice their opinions, and they aren't so supportive.
So what's my opinion on social or cultural appropriation?
Yes.
What's your definition of appropriation?
Well, with cultural appropriation, I can give you the example of like me taking the clothes that Native Americans would wear, and I wear it as my everyday, and I call that mine. People would take that as an offense, or other people would not.
So like the Chief Illini with the University of Illinois. Like, is it offensive or is it not?
Yeah.
So I think it's a two-parted question. Like, what's the opinion of social appropriation or cultural appropriation, and then like the use of social media side. I think, in my opinion, like being an individual with multiple different mixed nationalities in my makeup, it gets interesting because I feel like we live in a society today where a lot of us want to just instantly be mad about something, and our initial instinct is to be mad. I think it goes back to the intent of the person at the end of the day. Like, was the person dressing in a certain manner, saying something with the intent of being malicious, with the intent of being mean? Or was it a person who's just like, there's certain trends and fads that come and go? And so I think like if someone's purposely trying to do that to be negative, then it's a bad thing. If someone's just doing it because they don't know any better, you can kind of go with the phrase that ignorance is bliss sometimes. It just kind of comes down to your own personal beliefs and ideologies from that. In terms of the social media usage, again, it comes down to the intent behind it and what's actually stated or what's actually sent out and how it works, because I would say the biggest problem that we face today and in the future is how individuals are able to recognize the importance of what they share on the internet and what is there. And so everything that you post or everything that you say online doesn't actually leave, and that it stays there. And it goes back to, like, if you want to be current, all the kids, the James, Charles, and Tati thing. Like, that's 100% blown out of proportion over some guy just trying to get some free stuff.
Okay.
Sorry. I started talking.
It's okay. So, knowing that there is still inequality between sexes today, both in more developed countries and less developed countries, do you believe that America, or countries with a higher sex ratio, could help lower developed countries where women and young girls have a less of a chance going to school and being able to have a career?
Oh, of course. I mean, I think a lot of it comes down to two different perspectives and two different ideals. It comes down to, do you believe that as an American or as a Japanese person or a Chinese person or German or whatever country you're from, like, is it your job to focus on yourself and your country, or are we going to look at, instead of us as an ethnicity or a race or whatever, are we going to look at us as just humankind? And so if your answer is to look at, like, well, I'm an American, so I'm going to focus on America, or I'm a German, so I'm going to focus on Germany, then it's going to be very challenging to help other countries in terms of the gender inequalities. But if you look at it from a worldly perspective, that we're all human beings, and that some humans, or all humans, deserve the same rights and the same freedoms, then we can kind of make some differences there. So it just kind of goes down to your perspective of things. I mean, I do believe that we should be able to, or willing to, help everyone around the world.
Okay, and then this is the last question. Do you believe that the area where you live and where you go to school as you grow up affect your ability to get into a good university or school and then getting a better career in your future?
That's a loaded question there. Yes, no, kind of is my answer. So I think, so first, with where I lived, did that have an impact on where I went to college? Yes and no. So I grew up in the District 303 area, went to St. Charles North High School. High school had 2,000 kids in it, and it was assumed that you'd go to college And was it unheard of for me to go to the University of Illinois, a Big Ten school? No. So for me to say like where I lived, did that influence where I'm going? Not necessarily, but there is the stereotype of where I grew up, that people are more affluent, that could afford to be able to go to college. Does where I live affect the type of job that I get or can have? The answer is yes, but not just for me, but for everyone. Because like I've been in multiple different towns and communities where you can see just based on whatever industry jobs are there, whatever's prevalent, is the type of people that it brings in. So I student taught in this facility where the biggest business in town was a nuclear processing plant or a nuclear energy plant. So almost everyone worked there. And it was more of a rural community. I taught last year in Morrison, Illinois, where they used to have a GE plant in town making washing machines and microwaves. That GE plant went under. So now the only people there are just like the small town people. So based on where you live can affect the jobs that you have just because of what's offered there. Is that the limitation? No, because you always hear everyone saying like where are they going to go when they graduate. And there's always my favorite superlative for the seniors at the end, like least or most likely to stay in Central or most likely to stay in their hometown, because everyone tends to come back at some point. It just depends on the duration there. So where you live does affect the kind of career you can get. It can affect the kind of college you go to. The third part of the question I think it's interesting is, like I think today in society we push too much to go to college. Like I've had students myself, or even like when I teach some things and talk about things, it gets interesting because you can have a starting job out of high school if you're willing to go through a training process and make $80,000-$60,000 a year rather than paying $60,000 to $80,000 a year for college. And so if we start looking at building skills rather than chasing a piece of paper, I think it would kind of change some mindsets there. So as a teacher, I'm supposed to say, you know, go to college, push for further education, but I do think that there's a lot of careers out there that you not necessarily need a college diploma to be able to do good things. And that really just comes down to the opportunities in your area.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.